Hello, everybody, and welcome to Beyond BMR. I'm your host, Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. Joining me in Studio B, my great friend Tex. Beyond BMR goes beyond the mysteries of the world. We take you down a deep dive into all the rabbit holes and all the realms, from Bigfoot to Dogman, UFOs to aliens, from time travel to the paranormal. How do all these phenomena come together? Tonight's my guest, his new book, William Lunsford, Searching for the Unfindable, My Quest for the Arkansas Bigfoot, will be joining Tex and I shortly to discuss his work from his childhood until now, or a young adult, I should say. If this is your first time here, please subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube, and please subscribe to Texas Front Porch on YouTube. You can find us on Subspace Radio, iHeartRadio, and KPNL Radio. Thank you to the lovely Ann Selene out in Oregon for that one. You can find us wherever podcasts are found. The Super Chat is open. Yes, the Super Chat's a great way to help support what we all do around here, so your donations are, of course, most appreciated. With that being said, you know, we have our lineup. We're on every day except Sunday. With that being said, it starts on Mondays with Texas Front Porch. Again, please subscribe to the porch. 9 o'clock in the East. Tuesdays, Van Buren Variety. Please subscribe to Van Buren Variety. Good old Bobby. He comes on at 8 in the East on Tuesdays. Beyond BMR Tuesday nights, 9 o'clock in the East. Wednesdays, Jason's back doing a live gig. Jason McLean Questions Everything. Subscribe to him on YouTube. You can find him at 8. Later on Wednesday, the Diva Dimension on Texas Front Porch, 10 o'clock in the East. Thursdays back here with myself and the lovely Krista, 1 o'clock in the East. Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob and the Blondes and the Booze later on Thursday, 9 o'clock in the East. Join Krista and Brandy at 9. And you know what? If you need a little more woo with the booze, you can find them on Friday, 9 in the East, the Blondes and the Booze and the Woo. Saturdays, back with Texas Front Porch. And again, Miss Diva, Infamous Minds. It's true crime. It's fabulous. Please go check it out. You can find them 3 o'clock in the East. And of course, I always got to mention my buddy, JJ, Jessica Jones, Spaced Out Radio on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, 10 in the East. You can also find her. She is the Cryptid Huntress. And of course, you can find her on YouTube. With that being said, it wouldn't be right if I did not move forward and, of course, promote my own book. Bigfoot Michigan Rob presents True Cryptid Encounters Book 1. It's been out for a little under a month. I want to thank everybody that has bought in it and those that are going to buy it in the future. I do really appreciate that. You can find the link in the top of the chat. You can find it on the YouTube page on BMR. Before I bring up Will, I'm going to bring up my buddy Tex. Hello, Mr. Tex. How's it going? Hey, man, it's doing great. It's always great to see you. Last time I saw you was about 3 o'clock in the morning with the Blondes and the Booze, which was quite the hoot. Quite the hoot and a good time. And I got to tell everybody, I'm really proud of Tex. Yeah, you know, one of the biggest conferences coming up is this weekend. And my buddy Tex is a speaker at the Dogman Conference.
Thank you.
Put on by a whole host of people. Tex is a speaker. If you're in the Texas area, or if you got a lot of money, you can jump on an airplane, go down this weekend coming up. It's been promoted for quite the time. You got to check out Tex. The whole team, Tex, is going to be there, except for, you know, good old BMR. But, you know, things happen in life, and it's a personal thing, so I cannot make it. I thought, though, I had a sliver of hope, but then the unfortunate happenings within the family turned up. But you know what? I mean, that's life goes on. But I'm happy for you, Brandy, Jason, Krista, Miss Diva, I don't know if Randy's but everyone's there except me, Bobby. So before we bring up Mr. Will here, why don't you go ahead and talk to us a little bit about the excitement that you're feeling right now for the conference?
We're all really stoked. I mean, like you said, we got Brandy and Krista coming in. They got a vendors table. We got Bob Van Buren's going to be there. Jason McLean's going to be there. Bonnie Cho's going to be there, and then we got Danielle Diva. She's flying all the way from Canada. She's going to be here. So it's really exciting. We've already got some plans to cause some trouble down in the north side of Fort Worth and my old stomping grounds down there in historic stockyards. And I'm going to take them out yonder where the Lake Monster showed his head, a while back, and kind of show them the area down there, and they're excited about that. And of course, I'm speaking. From what I understand, I'm speaking on Sunday, and it's going to be about cryptids up close and personal. And of course, I'm not just going to talk about stuff. I'm not going to just point at blurry bushes or anything like that.
Oh yeah,
we got some hard evidence that we're going to show. So it's and a lot of people on the show, and a lot of people have already seen it and stuff. But it's a chance to really get up and see this evidence that we've got, and you can make up your own mind instead of just looking at it on a computer. We're actually going to have the pictures there if they get made in time. Plus, I'll have them I'll be showing them at the presentation and stuff. But it's the whole host of speakers that we've got is just, I say we. I mean, now I'm part of it. I just.
Right, I get you. You're a modest guy.
Josh Turner and Ken Gerhard they've been absolutely wonderful, and of course they're the ones ramrodding this deal and backing it and everything. And it's going to be. I've seen pictures of the venue. It's absolutely gorgeous, and it's going to be a good setup. Of course, we're having the dinner Friday night and everything, so I'm really looking forward to it. Really looking forward to it.
Yeah, you guys are have a fabulous time, and I'm sure that my phone will be blowing up that weekend, which I fully expect, by the way, because I wanna be there despite not being there. But if you guys can drop me a call, we'll do some video chats because it's something I wish I could have made. But again, it's going to happen. But I'm so happy for you for speaking, Tex. I'm happy for our whole team because I think it's going to be a fabulous venue for anybody interested in not just Dogman, but cryptids in general. And there's going to be a lot of fantastic. I think there's 20 great speakers, including you, Tex. So I'm really looking forward to getting the feedback from that. So with that being said, Tex, we've got a guy that he's been on my show several times, your show several times, and he finally put out a book, William Lunsford, Searching for the Unfindable. And I'm going to pull up the cover of the book. Searching for the Unfindable, My Quest for the Arkansas Bigfoot. This is literally William's lifelong journey that he started as a young man through today. And we're going to bring him up and want to promote his book a little bit, talk a little about it. And then that for the first segment, that perhaps we'll go on to what he's been doing recently. So enough of that. What I'm going to do is bring up Mr. William Lunsford.
Hey, everybody. Man, glad to be here with you. We've done this a time or two before.
We've done it a time or two, and it's always been a great show. And we've always thank you so much. And you're a pleasant person to speak with. One of the guys out there is truly boots on the ground and even behind the scenes, William's the guy that I'll ask him about certain things to help me out with what's going on in this crazy field that we're all in love with and been following for me for 5 years since 2018, and Tex for probably a decade. So I do appreciate it. And this show is going to be a little different because we typically, and we'll talk maybe in the second half about what you've been doing recently, but I really wanted to get your book out there and exposed because it puts together everything as a younger man until today about everything you've done with searching for the Arkansas Bigfoot, and as many people know, part of it is the Fouke Monster. And before we get into that, if you don't mind, I wanted to read because I got the book.
Sure.
Here's our copy. I want to read a passage that really got me started on this and made me. And I can tell, William, this was not something you wrote just to get people to buy the book. I think this came from you, the heart, and how you felt. So I'm going to take about 2 seconds and read the first paragraph, and I want you to expound on your thoughts behind this.
Okay.
This is chapter 1, first experiences. Right from the get-go, you write, people believe in many factors exerting influence in their lives. For some, it's circumstance or providence. For others, it's destiny, kismet, or fortune. Or maybe it's fate in italics, fate or chance, similarly described like the games we sometimes play in life. The hand you're dealt, a spin of the wheel, a roll of the dice, and the luck of the draw. The fact is, fate can occasionally have a big role in where you start and where you end up. I believe that's definitely the case in my life, referring to Will. The stars were certainly aligned the day my family moved to a farm south of Texarkana, thus beginning my experiences, which is what we can only describe as Bigfoot. You know what, man? When I read that, when I first got the book, I was compelled to continue on. It wasn't anything that, it wasn't a sales pitch. For me as the reader, I thought that was heartfelt, and I think those words are true. Can you like expound on that? Because that's fascinating.
Sure, man. I would love to. Again, first, please let me thank our first responders and all our service people that do what they do so that we can do what we do. I don't want to neglect them. I want to thank everybody who's here listening to it, whether you buy my book or not. And but I want you to let you know that things I'm telling you are all real. This right here, how I got started with that right there, I got to thinking, man, how can I get people to everybody maybe to identify, because not everybody has an interest in Bigfoot. I've had a guy there last Saturday down there. I was also in Fort Worth. I went to there at Billy Bob's and saw Ted Nugent. You know, and if there's anything wilder than Ted Nugent, it's Bigfoot himself. You know, that's probably my 26th time I think to see Ted. But there was one guy there that was just, you know, really, really rude. But then I talked to him after a while, and he kind of gained an interest. He opened up his mind a little bit, and so we talked a little more. So that was my thought right there. How do I get somebody who is not interested in Bigfoot, who might normally ridicule you or ridicule any of us, and to kind of get them to open their mind a little bit and to see. And so that was something that I thought of, well, man, what's something that affects us all? And that's what it is. It's chance. We don't know where we're going, man. The page could turn for us at any time. The book could close for any of us at any time. And saying that right there. So I thought, man, maybe this will kind of get folks in there, because it changed my life. I had nothing to do with that when we first moved down there to that farm. It was actually one of my aunts, and her husband passed away. It was kind of willed to us. So we went down there and lived. It's on a little road called South State Line. Texarkana is a twin city. Arkansas is on one side and Texas is on the other. And so we lived down there, and boy, loved it, man. I'm a country boy at heart, man. You know, love doing what I do. I love being in the woods. You and I, we all talked about that. Love being in there fishing, things like that. Listen to the sounds, man. We had a great front porch out there, Texas front porch, man. Down here in Arkansas, one of those things right there. The local news of the county on a daily basis was discussed on people's front porch. So that's a great name for Texas show. And that's what it was with us, man. We had a front porch there. We had some gliders, and then we had some swings that are hung right there. And we would sit there every night, and we would sit there and kind of talk about the way that things went and things. And then we would start hearing the animals and things like that right there, you know, and boy, that's always cool, you know, trying to identify and things like that. But then all of a sudden, you know, we started hearing some things that we didn't recognize. But that was my it wasn't a pitch, because like you said, it is heartfelt. The things that we experience, they do determine where we're going to go, you know, and whereas we try to have some impact on what they do, still sometimes they can just take you totally by surprise. And so that's what I wanted people to know, that I'm a Bigfoot researcher right now. I would not be one probably would it not for those things happening with my family moving down there on South State Line, 2 miles north of sulfur river bottoms down there, and where I started having. Well, I heard my first encounters, heard my first howls as a kid. I had some other things happen in my life, and then I've been back there. Golly, I'm just turned 64 2 weeks ago, and been down there as often as what I can. So that was my thought on everything. I want everybody to have something that they can realize that, hey, there's a lot of things that happen that's going to happen to you that's really going to affect you, and it did. Man, my life has changed. That the place that I went there, where I saw my very first Bigfoot, was the last place that me and my dad got to go fishing together before he had passed away. I say there in my book, I say he and I were just like the TV sheriff and his son that has the little whistling intro. That right there, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say that or not, but he and I would walk down the road, have my hands out, and be walking down there and just talk about the things of life. And so it had a special meaning to him. And then after he passed away, then I spent as much time down there as I could once I learned to drive. And so again, I would reminisce. I would have new encounters, not just with Bigfoot, with other animals and stuff happened to me. So that's it, and that affected me so much. It was a milestone event. You could take and sometimes around here in the South Dakota, you could drive a peg right there. And from that peg, you could measure out. And that's kind of where a lot of things from my life started. And that's how I ended up becoming a Bigfoot researcher. It was not by choice. It was not something that I set out to do. But when I did, man, it hung on to me like super glue. And I tried to find more about it, couldn't find it. Well, then what do you need to increase your encounters and make you more interested? You get a second encounter. And boy, when you get that right there, you may as well forget it, because either you're scared to death and going to run away, or else you're going to try to find out more about it. So I did that because I knew I wasn't going to give up fishing. I wasn't going to give up hunting. I wasn't going to give up being in the woods. So I had to learn more about it. So that's kind of where I went with that right there, and hoping that the first paragraph there got people kind of sounded a chord with them. Like, yeah, I can think of the things that, that affected my life: getting married, having my son, going to work at UPS, those kind of things like that. Worked out so fortunate for me, but that's something that sometimes we don't have control, but it did, and I'm so glad it did, and I'm glad to share this with everybody. I hope the ones who buy the book, I hope they do appreciate reading it, and it kind of touches the core with them too.
Yeah, it got me going. I'm going to want Tess to chime in on this. I'm going to go first, because you said that when you first started, it wasn't like you started out as a Bigfoot researcher with your explanations. And myself, I never would have been doing what I'm doing today had I not had my first encounter. That's why I'm doing this today. Now, Tex, is one of his first encounters with the dog man. And Tex, is that kind of how you started too, or did you always research cryptids prior to your encounter?
No, I didn't even know about it. I mean, I knew about Bigfoot because I've got family that is in Texarkana.
Yep.
So, and I was one of the lucky ones that actually got to go see the movie, Legend of Boggy Creek, at the theater.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And when he stuck his arm in the window of the trailer, and that old boy sitting on the toilet, my brother jumped over in my lap when I was at the movie theater. And it's my older brother, I'm like, hey, what are you doing on me? But I heard those stories. In fact, my cousin that just recently passed played a joke on us kids. We was up there, and we was in the backyard, and we was hunting the Fouke Creek Monster, at night, and we was all out there in the backyard with our play guns and everything. And he snuck out the front of the house, climbed up on the roof, put on a gorilla mask, come over and jumped down in front of us in the backyard. And I was the only one that didn't have the sense to run. My dumb butt stood there and pulling the trigger on this toy gun. I didn't know what the hell to do, And so, yeah, I kind of grew up with that. But the thing about it is, as I got older, I kind of left it behind. I kind of grew out of it, I guess you could say. But I was, going out fishing, hunting, and that's how I grew up, going out by myself since I was about 12 years old, And then honestly, I never even thought about it. Never even thought about it going out there. And then I had my dog man encounter at 16, and that kind of flipped everything around. It kind of flipped everything upside down, and after it scared the daylights out of me and stuck me on my heels for about 6 months. I didn't go back out, and I finally got tired of, I felt like I was being bullied. I didn't go out, blah, blah, blah. And I went back out, and then I ran into him again. But even that didn't really kick it off. I because I didn't want to talk about it.
Right.
I didn't want to be called crazy. I mean, I always say, hell, I wish I'd have seen a Bigfoot the first time.
Yep.
But I never really talked about it until, golly, it was after 2008. And I saw people talking about this dogman thing. I didn't even know what a dogman was. What I saw, I described it as a werewolf.
That's what I described it as.
And, I saw people were actually talking about this and weren't being called crazy, and I wasn't alone, so that's kind of where I just kind of fell into this, really. And it's been a hell of a ride. I know that. And now if you'd have told me back in 2008 or 2005 or whatever that I'd be sitting here on a podcast talking about this kind of stuff and going to speak at a conference about it, I'd have told you were nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's exactly, Tex. Same with me. And Will, for you probably in a million years didn't think you'd be writing the book, Searching for the Unfindable, my quest for the Arkansas Bigfoot, right, Will? You never thought you'd write a book about this?
Never. That was the last thing on my mind. The last thing on my mind before I saw one was actually that being the last thing on my mind. I had kind of grown up and I was like y'all. I had heard about it and kind of thought that, oh, well, it's maybe a possibility. But the older I got and the more people, you heard more people talking about, well, how stupid, there's no such thing. As Tex did. Mine was my first dogman encounter. I thought it was a werewolf rather than a dogman as well. And but you're hearing all that stuff like that. So finally you just let it go and you don't bring it up. It's not often discussed. Now around here it was because we'd had the Fouke Monster, but most everybody thought about, number one, it was either to prevent the moonshiners from being busted or prevent some other folks from moving down to Fouke that they didn't want to have. And so all of a sudden, when you've got that kind of story behind it, then you tend to dismiss it. And I had done, quote, wised up. I knew better than that. There wasn't no such thing. Well, as soon as I saw one, I had one old man one time, I was telling him about it. He goes, he said, I don't think I'd know if one came and sat down here beside me on the bench. I'm like, oh, no, you would. I said, you wouldn't have to go through one or two animals and you'd know exactly what you were looking at. So it is. So that's how it got into me right there. And I'm glad it did. I love doing these podcasts. What podcasts like y'all's and others did for me was it gave me a support group because, man, I was carrying that crap inside. And I was nuts about it. I didn't. You were reading my book about my wife. Whenever I met my wife, first time I had to tell her and her folks. And as I said, the first thing that I thought was going to happen would be for her dad would say, well, son, that's a real good story. Be sure you get all your stuff on the way out of your house and don't come back. But the neat thing, here's another one of those stories that the fake kismet thing. Instead of hearing that, I heard the story from my mother-in-law, who's a very, very Christian, good woman, who told us, well, the lady across the street, she was kind of like a garden party hostess. And they had one as she was over there hosting one of her garden parties, walking down the edge of her fence about 7 feet long, about 7 feet tall. And it was rusty red. Mine was black. It was, looked like May could have had some different color, but it was more black or chocolate brown. But this one was like pine cones. And it went over and kept walking down. She kept the lady's attention on her so that it wouldn't cause a freak out. And it stepped right across a 4-strand barbed wire fence and kept on going. I was not expecting that right there. Because had I gotten the response I was expecting from her dad, I wouldn't be married to Cindy right now. I'd be married to somebody else. So it is. So that's another one of those things. Like I said, you can mark as a milestone. And I knew right then, hey man, if this girl right here has got dogman or Bigfoot on her property, I'm fixing to propose. And so it's been that way. But it really has been like it's been this doing podcast like a support group for me. She that weight off my show. I took a little from people. Man, I'm a joker anyway. Y'all heavy on there. I love to laugh, love to cut up, but people can be really cruel, man. I mean, really cruel. And there's a big difference between people listening and people believing. And man, I could get mad at the drop of a hat, and so that one thing helped me control my anger with some of that, and then too, it kind of broadened my scope as far as for having some kind of personality. If you can't laugh at yourself, but that's one thing I never laughed at, was that rather, because man, it screwed me up big time. And whenever I told my family about it, later on told my son about it, and I was at a brand new member on a new deer lease, and all of a sudden he told some of the people down at their deer lease, boy, and I was mad. And I said, man, I told you not to tell anybody, because they're going to kick me off this lease. And then another guy said, no, man. He said your son told us. He said, but don't think that's going to happen. He said, because I bet you I can tell you where you saw yours. And I was really kind of defiant. I said, oh, really, where at? And he goes, down at Gifford Hill, down at those gravel pits. And that's exactly where it was. Gifford Hill was about probably 3 miles from the house that we moved into. A series of gravel pits there on each side of the county road, and then also through the woods there. And these things, nature kind of reclaims them wherever you get through. So when they get through taking out the gravel, so then you've got the fish, you've got the ducks, you've got alligators, you've got everything in there. And so in doing that right there, you've got a place opened up to you. That's what the places were for me and my dad were going fishing the same way, had done that there. So it was being reclaimed by nature. And all of a sudden, whenever I'm down there, and I remember this Bigfoot, well, this guy here had a story that his best friend was down there, and he would be like I would do if I used to do it. I didn't have enough money for a doggone boat, and it was too far to walk to drag one in. I'd take a rod and reel and top water plug. If I go there now, if I shot a duck and he went out there farther than I could get him, and I'd cast a Lucky 13 over there, wind it across his back, man, we'd be having supper that night. But that's the same thing he told. He said, yeah, I can tell you exactly where it was. And he did. And he mentioned his buddy being the same way. He was too poor to have a boat. And that's kind of how he got started. But then his buddy never came back again. And I'm like, oh, man, that's, man, there's my life and his right here, just parallel with it. So that's kind of where it went. And so I'm, after that, they're actually extremely grateful, because I enjoy this, man. This is a lot of fun. There's nothing any more exciting than we just stand there looking at a Bigfoot. Number one, because of the size, the immense size. Number two, because you realize you are not the king of the hill. On that right there, when it's right there in front of you, all the joking stuff that you've done about people, it kind of brings it back to you. But you see these things, and there's nothing any more exciting than that. And so doing what I do, and I've been going out the last couple of weeks here. I've been getting a lot of I had 12 cameras out, 7 been thrown, some have been broken. I've got like 6 now that are functioning, but I gathered all my SD cards. And man, right now the Bigfoot here in the south are just really starting to get moving. I'm getting a lot of pictures on my cards right there. But that's something I look forward to. I'm like you, man. I just I like fishing. I still like hunting. But if I get a chance to go Bigfoot hunting and a chance to see that big hairy rascal, then I'm then I'm in my element right there.
It didn't even. Like I said, I had my first encounter when I was 16, so it's been a year or two. But it never even dawned on me until I just sitting here talking to you right now. Thank you, Anella. And it's because my family was a good support group when I had my sighting. They didn't call me a liar. They didn't call me crazy. Now, don't get me wrong. They suggested maybe it was this or that or this, but I think that was just trying to help me deal with it.
That's right.
Honestly. And it just struck me. My family, my mom and dad were from Texarkana.
Yep.
That's probably why they were such good supporters. Because they grew up with this stuff out yonder.
Exactly. My mom, she told me first she kind of did the same thing. She kind of tried to sort through, some pigeonholes where you could put these things. She said, well, son, are you sure? And I said, Mom, I'm sure, and she knew, because man, I was 6'2" and 240, used to play college football, 17 years old. I didn't cry about a whole lot. I was pretty well past all that. And so, for her to have that compassionate heart, and that's what moms do. She's like, well, son, I believe you. I just don't believe I'd tell a whole lot of people. Well, I only told a few, but man, like I said, but they harassed me pretty doggone good, and so I just shut up for a long time. But I include that in the book as well, because that kind of, it's not shame that you feel, but it's you, like I said, you're reaching out for somebody, and I hope I bring that across there, that how really it did devastate my psyche, not only because of seeing the creature, but also because that's the last place I had of my dad, and I've lost that, and that was really really hard on me. Go ahead.
You know,
Go ahead, Tex.
it's just when you talk about, you know, not talking about it and all that kind of stuff. I got loose lipped I was out with some friends, and I think we were playing cards or something. You know, of course, we've been drinking, and I told my story and everything. I think I was about 17, 18, something like that. And I mean, it was I got kind of razzed about it a little bit, but not real hard.
Right.
And then, but one of my buddies there, he got kind of quiet, you know. And after things had kind of split up, I asked him, I said, "You all right?" He goes, "Man, I got to tell you something." Well, and he had run into a critter, and it wasn't like mine. His was on all fours. It sounded more like a hellhound type thing.
Yeah.
It was long and scrawny looking and on all fours and everything. But you know, it was nice it was refreshing to be able to kind of have that, you know, experience we could share. We could actually talk about it openly with each other and stuff.
It gives you a bond that you don't have with a whole lot of people. I'll truly tell you that.
I agree. And you know what's great about what you mentioned earlier about you used to get mad, William, about talking to people about Bigfoot and text. I don't know if he experienced that, but I remember when I first had my encounter, I used to get mad at my friends that didn't believe what I saw. So for the longest time, you guys, I tried to convince people that these creatures exist. Well, I gave up on that 4 years ago because I could give a damn anymore. I'm a knower, not a believer. And I do this, and the people that listen to this show and Texas show, Texas Front Porch on YouTube, subscribe. I don't know, Tex, you know, maybe someone hasn't subscribed yet. But anyway, you know, this is what we do because we're knowers. We've seen these things, and it brings up to a part of your book, which I found fascinating because you, in chapter 6 of the book, you say converting the unbelievers. Yeah.
Exactly right, man. Because you get enough of this, and you know, thing is, you know, one of the big jokes I took from everybody, well, Gee, man, what were you smoking, man, or what were you? How long did it take to sober up? You know, well, man, I don't drink and I don't smoke. I'm not a prude or anything like that, but I just, you know, I choose to. I had some friends that did, and they didn't remember half of what we did whenever we were in our teenage years. So therefore, I decided I was going to remember. But I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I didn't do drugs, and to take that kind of lip from people like that, boy, it was just so hard to do. But all of a sudden, I said, well, how am I going to do? And I was like, Rob, I wanted to convert. I wanted them to know, hey, man, I'm telling you the truth. And back then, here's where the press has done a poor job with Bigfoot, just like they have with some other things in this country. There are no pictures of Bigfoot out there. With all these cameras, how come we don't have any picture? Well, you guys know what you got. You've seen what I've got. And me and Steve, I say, me and Steven in my research partner, I say, they don't look, hey, that's a lie. They're there. And some of them are just as clear as what they can be, but they don't, number one, they don't want it to be true. You know, is there a conspiracy? I don't know and don't care, you know, that. And they go, well, the Patterson Gimlin film is fake. Well, whether it is or not, that's not what I base my research on. I base my research on what I saw here in the woods of Arkansas back in 1977. So going through there, but I tried to find a way that I could, instead of getting mad, that I could approach that with maybe a more soft-hearted attitude. And so I finally, you know, learned to, I had some things there that I would, I think y'all may have heard me say that I used to say, well, man, I'd be delivering to somebody's house way out in the woods. And I'd say, man, boy, you guys live so far out here. If Bigfoot don't live out here, it's because it's too far for him to walk, you know. And then we'd have a good little chuckle and everything, you know. And you get to know these people because you're seeing a lot of time on a daily basis. And then once they get to know your character, you know, then they'll say, oh, well. But I had one lady tell me one time, I told her that, she goes, well, if you think that, then you need to be here about dark. And I said, well, I'm afraid of the dark. And she goes, well, you should be. Man, I had to go with that one. I had to follow it up and see where it went down that rabbit hole and got a good story. Now, I never got a chance to go back to her house after dark, but I did get a chance to go during the daytime. So it is. So I wanted to find a way that I could make people realize, hey, Will's telling the truth, man. Like I said, you know, I'm no super saint, but man, I try to tell you the truth if I can, you know. And if my wife asked me what happened to that $5 bill there on the bar now, I might say, oh, I think the wind blowed off there. I saw the dogs chewing or something like that. But and then I'm eating a Reese's Cup and a Mountain Dew there about 20 minutes later. The cat's out of the bag. But other than that, man, I try to tell people the truth. There's just no sense trying to embellish yourself, because you guys all know that whenever you have something like this, you get more bad press and more bad comments
Yeah.
than good comments.
You know, I gotta tell you something. I realized too a long time ago when I was that guy that got mad and tried to sell people on the fact that I saw something. Then I finally realized one day, probably after starting doing podcasts and doing more interviews and doing some more little research of my own, the more that I kept trying to prove it to people, the more I look like a fraud.
That's right.
And that's where I'm like, you know what? I'm done with it. I don't care if you believe me or not. So I think that the less you speak on something, and I'm credible, but that's the more credible you are. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
You know, I've been very
you
fortunate.
know,
My whole community has stood behind me on this. I haven't had hardly anybody say anything derogatory. Even, you know, I was very skeptic about bringing it up to people that I went to church with. But whenever people found out what I was doing, man, you know, they stood up for your character. They stood up for the person they knew through high school and that they you know, that they grew up with. You know, and some of them like, well, if he's, you know, I've never seen it, but if he said he saw it, he saw it. So that means a lot too, to reaffirm your character and that you've had that impact on somebody's life, that you're known as somebody who keeps their word and who does that. So I didn't mean to interrupt.
you know,
No, you're fine.
I've said this before, and I came out of the proverbial Bigfoot closet several years ago, and you know, the way I looked at it, hell, I'm 50 something years old. I'm set in my career. I just don't care anymore, you know, and you know, hey, I saw something. I can't explain it. You know, it was, I can tell you what it looked like, and that's about all I can do, you know. And when I started actively researching, I started having these other encounters and all this kind of stuff. I've had 2 daylight sightings of Bigfoot, and I can't even tell you how many nighttime encounters that I think was.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
And that's the problem with nighttime encounters. Most of the time you think it's Bigfoot, and that's about all you can do.
Yep.
But I still get ridiculed, you know, especially at work. You know, my credibility at work took a shot, and that's sad. You know, it shouldn't be that way, you know, just because but I think a lot of it is, I think it would shatter people's reality, you know, and they're scared of that.
It definitely turns over their apple cart, I promise you.
Oh yeah, no doubt about that.
It certainly does. We're looking right here. I see this picture here. I'd like to let y'all know that I drew this picture. And it's from memory from what I saw there. And then the first time that I had my book published and they tried to add some color to it, it looked more like a doggone cartoon character off of Scooby-Doo than it did, you know, an actual Bigfoot. And so the people did go with me and rework some of this. And that's about like what I saw right there. The face, there wasn't quite as much of a happy look on his face, the one I saw. But other than that, but again, I wanted to expound on what that was before I did forget. But yes, it is. It's man, when you have something other like that right there, because it does affect you so much, and you want to talk about it. But then now, thanks to the publicity that Bigfoot has gotten through some of the TV shows are pretty good. Some of them are not good, but still, it's made it to where you can actually talk about these things and having these encounters. And so whenever it's made it a whole lot easier for us to talk about, to where it's not everybody just look at you like, you know, you're a cornball idiot as far as that goes. So for that part, I'm thankful. And then people, I had a friend, I say a friend, this guy I've known for a long time, and he said, man, so you're really doing Bigfoot? I said, yeah. He goes, where's your pictures? Man, that's like asking a grandparent to whoop out pictures of their grandkids. Man, I whooped my phone out so quick and put it on him. He goes, I've got to change the way I look at things. I said, they're real. He goes, evidently they are, man. He said, and I apologize for what I thought. Well, you know, not that I held a grudge against him, but that meant a whole lot to hear, you know, that, hey, there's this guy. So anyway, that's kind of where that goes to, converting the unbelievers, because there's something to be said about it. Number two, I don't want somebody to get there. I've talked to probably, gosh, I'm getting probably close to 200 people now who have had seen Bigfoot. And what I tell them truly could make a difference between whether they're life or death, because
Yeah.
there's things that you don't want to do. One thing you don't want to do, you don't want to shoot at one. That's a fact.
Right.
I carry a 45-70 with me. I don't carry that for the Bigfoot. I carry that for the hogs and the panthers and the bears and the coyotes and the snakes and things like that. Because when you do, if you miss, y'all know, and this is the honest truth, Bigfoot does not run by himself. He's got what we call, or here in Arkansas we call a troop. He's got a troop with him. It's like the raptors there on Jurassic Park. It's not the one that you see, it's the two you don't see. Well, the same way right there. And so that's one thing that you don't do. Number two, you don't necessarily want to turn around and run,
Yeah.
because that does whatever it is, whether it eats people or what, it does like to mess with people, and that will trigger that predator instinct or the playful instinct they have. Like, watch me get rid of this guy right quick. So that's other things that you don't want to do, and then too, you don't want to bring the wrong persons in there. I've carried some people who Bigfoot truly they didn't care for. And boy, whenever I went back there, a couple of days afterwards, they had pushed all the trees over on the trail. They had snapped the trees, pushed them over. They had stomped around where I had parked. And I'm like, well, man, this is pretty easy to see what this is. So there's things that you learn what to do and what not to do. But
Yeah, and we talk about converting and making people believe. I'm to the point now where I don't care if you believe me or not, or maybe you think I saw something else or whatever. All I want is you to be open-minded enough to go, what if? And I'm happy.
Yep.
Don't just, write it off because your world's so black and white you can't see, that's what bothers me, because to me that's sticking your head in the sand.
Well, when people say to me, they say, Will, what's your goal with doing all this? And I tell them, first and foremost, I don't want to embarrass my friends. I don't want to embarrass my family. I don't want to embarrass my community. The next thing is I enjoy seeing what I do, and I enjoy exposing other people like to what I do here. Man, when they have their first Bigfoot sighting, I've taken several people to where they've had their first Bigfoot sighting, and the look on their face and see the way it's changed their lives. So that's my goals right there. I'm not gonna. None of us are gonna get rich on this. Y'all know that well as I do.
Yeah, that's for sure. And there's like 3 other chapters in the book that I kind of want to go over.
Yep.
But before I do that, though, I gotta ask a question to Lori, one of the people from our chat. She's a good supporter of the show. She just really briefly, before we get into that, asks, how many encounters or experiences with Bigfoot have you had? And have you had an experience with anything other than Bigfoot that you're aware of?
Yeah, I apologize. I cannot see the chat here from my computer, so I apologize for that. But anytime you have the question, y'all be sure and relay it to folks. If I told you truly in 60, I'm 64 years old. I've been researching for 46 years. If I told you truly here how many I'd had, you would think I was telling you a lie, but I'm not. I live in we call it Bigfoot Central down here. I've got Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Oklahoma. I've actually found tracks and things in Tennessee, right there in Mud Island at Memphis. I went with Duke Sullivan up there to Montana and did some research up there with him. And it's very, I've got here on my phone from a lot that I've seen from my phone, some that my wife has taken pictures of, some that I've gotten from my trail cams. I've got over 100 pictures of Bigfoot in here, and I've got 50 that are really good and clear. And sometimes you don't get, the pictures don't get, they're not as clear as what you'd like for them to be. Nobody gets any more disappointed than me. But that's kind of the nature of the beast sometimes. Look at some of these people that shoot these shows at night there, or like say cops or something like that, or cheaters or something, and look at how screwed up the pictures are. Same thing happens when you're researching Bigfoot. It's not because I'm trying to put a scam on him. That's just the way it is.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
And and honestly, I can attest, because you sent me several pictures over the last couple of years that are definitely spot on Bigfoot photos.
Yep.
And I know there's reasons why you wouldn't want to put them out, to be honest. And you have put some out, of course.
Sure.
And you've shown them on Duke's show.
Yep.
But and so Lori, she thanks you for that. So she dropped the link for your book right in the chat. So everybody, if you hit the link, you'll go right to Williams book.
Lori, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that, guys. I'm like I said, it's a labor of love. It's not a deal of economics. It's a labor of love. It's going to, like I said, cost me more than probably I'm ever going to ever make out of it. But it's got something there that I hopefully will help broaden everybody's range to it. It'll bring you a little excitement. I had one lady there. We were speakers there at the Nebraska Bigfoot conference, and one lady came through there with her sister and their husband. And so she bought the book, and whenever she did, she texted me 2 days later, and she said, I can't remember what she was from the East Coast over there, either West Virginia or Virginia, one of the two. And she said, I want you to know on the way home, I started reading that book, and I had it finished by the time we got home. And she said, I let my sister read it, and she started then when my husband, like, well, what's so good about this right here? He wants to read it. And I said, well, I appreciate that, because it's telling you true encounters. You can tell when I write that fact is stranger than fiction. Truth is stranger than fiction. But you can tell I'm not pulling your leg. I can tell you that same story the same way a jillion times, because it's like that little video loop you've got going there. I can see it happening all over again. So it's really one of those things that means a lot to me. And for somebody to buy my book and promote my book, guys, I don't take that lightly. You've got a lot of things to do with your money, a lot of things to do with your time. And so I want to thank everybody, including you guys, that they're doing that.
Yeah, I have no problem promoting anybody, especially I've known you for a while, Will, and there's no slack off my back, because you're one of the best researchers out there, man, hands down, in my opinion.
I appreciate that.
Next to Tex.
Well, man, I do appreciate that. I've got a good team around me. I've got some good guys. They don't lie either, and they're proud to talk about it. They're not going to snap at you when you do, and if you do talk about it, or you don't necessarily believe them. But to have that group right there, including my family, my son's a dentist, my wife is an RN, a cancer nurse, and therefore they're both highly more intelligent than I am. But for them to do that and have the encounters, it speaks volumes for the fact that, yes, Bigfoot is a real thing. Thank you, Lori, so much. I appreciate it. Like you wouldn't believe. Said just bought the book. I appreciate that. It's. I hope it's going to be something that you're going to enjoy, and it's going to give you a thrill. It's going to give you a chill, and it's going to give you a laugh or two.
And again, because I wanted you on. Will, you're so humble, so that's why I wanted you to have you on, because I really didn't want to market you, because you don't market yourself, just like Jason McLean don't market himself. So that's why I wanted you on. This is a thick book, you guys. And let me tell you guys, it's over 450 pages. There's pictures in here. And this is probably one of the best Bigfoot books I've read. And I've read several. But what I like about it is the stories behind it. It really chronicles your search from the beginning to current day, your life currently today. That's what I really like about it. So it's very well put together. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you sending me the copy some time back, and yeah, Will. So I wanted to do the show for you because, well, being a new author myself, I know what it's like now.
Well, man, it is, but I do appreciate that, and I want to share my experiences with other people, and you guys, after you've gotten to know me, I'm not a liar. Like I said, I'm not going to promote myself. As far as that goes, I've had my book in print for like 3 months. Just now got it in Monster Mart down here at Fouke, Arkansas, which is it's Bigfoot Mecca. Mr. Robert's a friend of mine, and also I've got a friend named Keith Crabtree. Keith has actually played the creature in the Legend Boggy Creek. Y'all know him.
He's great.
He's man. He helps promote my book. But one thing Keith knows, he knows all the background behind all the things that went into the movie. And Keith will. He says to me, he'll tell people, hey, Will's genuine. You won't be disappointed. And that means a lot too, from somebody like that who actually lived all that stuff, to have that. So I appreciate it, guys. I really do. Like I said, anything else you want to bring up about the book, Rob, I'll shut up, man.
No, well, I do, but you know what? We got 3 minutes. So I want to give you more than 3 minutes.
Okay.
But I do have a question in chapter 1. You talk about the Ford house. What the hell is a Ford house? The
Ford house is where, if anybody knows anything about the Legend of Boggy Creek, there was a young family in their 20s, and they had just moved to this house on Highway 71, just about 3 miles north of Fouke, Arkansas. And so whenever they moved in there, I don't know, I can't remember now where the guys were working at, but there were ladies there as well, and so and they had dogs. And so this is where the encounters started happening just as soon as they moved. They lived there about a week is all it took, and then they were out of there. And so whenever they did, they would have the thing come around the house. It would more than once stick its hand, through the window right there. It would beat on the side of the house. The dogs were scared to death. You could hear the thing howling. You would find tracks in the yard 4 or 5 inches longer than what yours were. So that's the Ford house. That's the place where the Legend of Boggy Creek actually got the press. Now, it's actually been around since 1908. They've actually been for the Fouke Monster. Like I said, that's a long time for a lot of things happened in history right there. Like Henry Ford's, I'll tell you, first one, 1908. The ball first dropped there from Times Square, in New York, so there's all kinds of things there. But when you see that right there, and for these things to be there, and then these kids, after this, they're married and have family. And finally, people say, well, Bigfoot won't hurt you, man. There's 2 of them. I think there were 2 of them there. And the lady, she wrote a letter. It's there at Monster Mart. And she said she thought there were 2 because every room the dog was in, that was where the things would attempt to enter into the house. And so after a week, they were gone, man. And but strangely, my encounter was 3 miles as the crow flies directly from where the Ford house was. So
wasn't it Bobby that got roughed up?
Yeah, it was Bobby. And I actually talked to Dave Hall, who was head of emergency management here in Texas County years after that. Right there, I told him, David, told David what had happened. He's passed away now, bless his heart. But I told him what had happened, and I said, was Bobby really messed up? He goes, man, said he was scratched up, said he was in shock. Said it was what they portrayed probably would not have prepared you for had you seen him. But he told me the truth. That's the way it was. And Bobby evidently was probably the baddest man walking, because he's out-whooped a Bigfoot, took off running, and went running through the porch. Now, if he can do that right there, he's got my respect, man. So
awesome.
Yeah. So
well, fantastic. I love that. We're coming up on our 5-minute break, which we do have to take for our sponsors.
Okay.
I saw Susie B just popped in, and every time Susie B comes in, I got to show what she did for me. She painted me a rock. She asked what my favorite animal was. I said, it's the lion.
That's it.
So I was supposed to meet her in Vegas. I didn't make it. Nice little rock. Thanks, Susie, for that. It's right here in my studio. William Lunsford, searching for the unfindable Arkansas Bigfoot, his quest. We'll be back in 5 minutes.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Four minutes to go, folks. 4 minutes. Three minutes. We're almost there. 2-minute warning, guys. 2-minute warning. One minute. 1 minute.
Thank you, everybody, for coming back beyond BMR. We have a great show. William Lunsford, Searching for the Unfindable, my quest for the Arkansas Bigfoot. A lot of you know it, as well as the Fouke Monster. Not related, they're different, and Will does a great job talking about his book here today. So thank you, William, for joining us. Also, thank you to Anella for the amazing super chat. You know, the super chat is a great way to help support what we do around here, I should say, across Bigfoot, Mission Rob, Texas Front Porch, and the rest of our phenomenal cast and members that we have, the team that we've put together. So thanks for your support in that. We do appreciate that immensely. Mondays is Texas Front Porch, 9 o'clock in the East. Again, subscribe to Tex, 9 o'clock in the East, Monday with Brandy. Tuesday is Van Buren Variety. Please subscribe to Bobby. He's on at 8 o'clock in the East. Beyond BMR right here, Tuesday nights at 9 with myself and Tex. Wednesday, Jason McLean questions everything. He's back doing a live show with Donnie Cho, 8 o'clock in the East. Subscribe to Jason. Daniel Diva on Texas Front Porch, 10 in the East, Diva Dimension. Check it out. Great show. Thursday, brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, 1 o'clock in the East. And I have a great show. I'm going solo this Thursday, but I have a fantastic guest. I have another author coming on Thursday, Varla Ventura. We'll be talking mermaids and other gothic creatures. That'll be on brunch on Thursday. Thursday night is the Blondes, the Booze Paranormal Podcast with Chris and Brandy at 9. And if you need a little more woo with the booze, you got the Blondes, the Booze, the Woo. Friday nights at 9. Saturday, back with Texas Front Porch, Infamous Minds with Daniel Diva. That does come on at 3 o'clock. If you're into true crime, that's the place to be on Saturday. And, of course, my buddy Jessica Jones, Space Out Radio, Saturday and Sunday at 10 of these. She is the Cryptid Huntress. Check her out. She does a couple shows during the week as well. So, again, thanks to everybody. And, of course, everybody, before I bring up Tex and before I bring up William, we're talking about William's book, but really quickly, yes, here it is. Bigfoot, Michigan Rap presents True Cryptid Encounters, Book 1, my first book. For everybody who's bought it already, I really do appreciate the support. You guys are awesome. I really do appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. So thank you for that. And of course, this is William's book. The links are in chat. The links will be in the description. Searching for the Unfindable, my quest for the Arkansas Bigfoot with William Lunsford. Somebody already bought it. Lori already bought the book. Thank you for that, Lori. And we have a great show, fantastic show. And I'm gonna bring up Tex and William here.
Yeah, the handsome one came up first there, and then here I am on behind there.
William,
you just got through telling us that you weren't a liar.
Yeah, I'm going to also be at this Dogman conference we talked about. I'm going to be there this weekend. I don't know if I'll get to stay a full Saturday or Sunday. We rescue dogs, and depending on how the thing goes there, I will be. If my wife can handle it, then I will try to be there through Sunday. If not, I'll be going to church that morning and could drive back to Texarkana. But other than that, I'll be there. If you want to look me up, punch me in the nose, whatever it is, whatever you want to do. But I'll be glad to speak and say hello, and love to meet the people there that they've heard me speak. So please do that as well.
And William, I got a personal message sent to me not too long ago that I'm supposed to read to you live on the air. And this is from Krista. Please tell William hello for me and Brandy. I will see him Thursday evening. And I said, I will let him know live on air, Krista. So you're hooking up with Krista on Thursday. And are you guys supposed to be going out in the woods? Because I know Krista and Brandy are.
Yep. I'm supposed to take them down to some places there where I've had encounters down around Fouke, down around Sulphur River. We're going to go down to Monster Mart and look at that. Monster Mart is its own little museum right there on Monster Expressway through Highway 71 in Fouke, Arkansas. And man, as pretty as those two ladies are, I may just wear a tuxedo down there because they're very smart, Bigfoot wise. So I'm very excited about that. They're good ladies. I've been on their show. Very, very gracious to me, and I appreciate them for that. And I'm glad to do it. And then they're going, I think, to leave them maybe Friday morning, heading out to Fort Worth and going to have the dinner. I know for sure I won't be able to make the dinner, but they're going there, and I'm excited about doing that as well, man. That's one thing about this subject that we have right here, man. We all leave this. We start as unknowns, and we leave as friends, Yep. And man, I appreciate it. Yeah. And so that means a whole lot to me as well. And so anyway, I thank you guys again for having me on there, for letting me share that little bit right there. And I'm looking forward to, we'll try to get Keith Crabtree down there with us Thursday if he's not out of town. So they'll enjoy meeting Keith. He's a joke a minute, man. Great guy.
Yeah, and you make such a great point, because Tex and Tex might have met him prior to me, but I met Keith in Alabama, I believe it was, and such a great guy, really cool guy. I enjoyed talking with him, and you made a great point about these conferences. That's why I'm kind of disappointed I'm not making this year's rounds. You make a lot of friends. There was people coming up to myself and Tex and a whole host of our other team members before we met the booze, and hey, BMR, hey, Tex. I'm like, hi, and your name is? Oh, yeah, I watched your guys' show. And, it's a humbling experience. And I got to tell you, the people that are in this community are very gracious. They're very friendly. They're very easy to talk to. And they really do appreciate what Tex does, what I do, Jason, and now the girls. The girls were a paranormal team when they came aboard. And they've picked up so fast in the cryptid world. They're out at the LBL all the time now. They're doing as much research in cryptids as they do now in the paranormal. So I'm proud of them, and I'm glad they're part of our team. So shout out to Brandy and Krista, Christy and Brandy. I got they're interchangeable. I love them both equally, and so they're pretty awesome. And again, William, you're an awesome guy. Awesome book. Searching for the Unfindable. My quest for the Arkansas Bigfoot. And I want to get into here chapter 3, because this is kind of a chapter that I think we all can relate to in one fashion or another. And the chapter reads, so many quote unquote geniuses.
So many.
So what was your thought behind that?
Well, you would tell somebody something and try to appear humble, because Bigfoot has a whole lot more to do with the Bigfoot sighting than I myself do, or even as you guys. I mean, we do prepare, we do stuff like that, but if everything's not right, you're not going to get that sighting. They're either going to smell you, they're going to know something's wrong. So they have a lot to do with it. But you would try to very humbly tell people that things were real. And man, all they could do was just, I've been hunting these woods all my life, and I ain't never seen nothing like that. Well, my grandma, and she said that they never was down there. And that was just a joke to get people out there, because all they was doing was just drinking all the time. And they wouldn't even listen to the things that what you had to say. as far as for what the reason was. Man, I'm not a local historian, but I know the history of my town around here. Texarkana is also home of the Phantom Killer, the guy who went through the city park killing young couples. Man, we've got a strange, a strange history.
My
So it's also, the home of Scott Joplin, the home of H. Ross Perot, the home of Willie Davis of the Green Bay Packers. So it's got a history. It's not just a hick town where everybody lives in a daggum shotgun shack. So with that right there, and you try to talk to these people, and they would just totally shut you out. And so every excuse, it's not like you don't hear these same excuses again. And I can take a good joke. I tell some of the same jokes again, like what people say, but oh yeah, like I told you before. Well, how Town That Dreaded Sundown, great movie it was. Had the same made by the same producer that made The Legend of Boggy Creek actually as well.
My mom, her best friend was one of his victims.
Is that right?
Yeah.
We have a friend here whose cousin was killed there, and it was about 4 miles from where my house is out here, actually on a rural highway of all things, Highway 67, going to the little town of Fulton, Arkansas. Through there.
Yeah, they worked at a little soda shop together there in a drugstore somewhere, and it was. I remember her telling me that.
So I was wanting these people to at least open up their mind, because they'd have all these excuses as to why it wasn't real. And that's what a lot of these shows are you see on TV. It's not about why it is real, it's why it's not real. Again, saying, oh, well, why aren't there any pictures? Well, they're there. As I said, you've got them, we've got them, and they're there. And there's legitimate people. When you see people there that crying their eyes out because they're remembering what they saw, hey, that leaves a mark on you. It does me, because, man, whenever I can really get into it, y'all may have heard me tell this before, but I'm going to tell it one more for emphasis. I was fixing to have hand surgery, and the lady saw that I was reading a book there about Bigfoot, and she goes, Texarkana, that's not too far from Fouke, is it? I said, no, it's not. She goes, well, have you ever seen the creature? And I said, yes, I have. She goes, well, tell me about it. Well, I had the blood pressure cuff around my arms, 137, I think, over 80 or 85. I started telling the story. My blood pressure went up to 204 over 96. And this is at a major hospital in Little Rock. They called the stroke alert team because they thought that I was fixing to have a stroke. My wife goes, he ain't having no stroke. I said, that's what happens when he relives this story. And you can tell right now my voice is kind of quivering a little bit, because when I relive this story, I can cry if I want to. But I just kind of, like I said, I'm past crying and past diapers, so I'm going to try to not do that. But it affects you so much still. It touches every part of what all you went through back then. And so for these people, when you see people, like I said, that are crying, that are doing that, you see their voices raised, they're quivering. Some of them have to sit down. Some of them just have to quit talking about it. Man, they're not lying to you. That's just the honest truth. And so all these geniuses that want to put them down and put me down, and I'm like, man, so many. Let's open up the conversation a little bit. And then when you tell some stuff about it, have one guy down here that he was making fun of a friend of mine that saw one 3 years ago, and I'm really making bad for him. Saw it down of Magnolia, Arkansas, which is where Southern Arkansas University is. He's on his way home. There's Bigfoot standing right there, comes up on the berm of the road. Everybody's making fun of him. I was down there at this one store, and I was fixing to purchase. I'm not going to tell you what it was, because you'll know what it was, and I don't want to out anybody or put anybody down. But he was the guy who had on the store was putting me down. And he said, I had on a Bigfoot shirt. And my motto, you see the guys with black hats. Well, mine is a picture of Harry and the Senator Hendersons, because you can see there's kind of a similarity in the look there. So that's my trademark. So he goes, what's the shirt all about? He said, is that your twin brother? And I said, well, it is my twin brother, and that's exactly why I bought it. I said, I'm a Bigfoot researcher. And I said, I'm the Bigfoot researcher that you've been telling everybody that's crazy. I was actually appeared in the Magnolia newspaper there. He goes, oh, really? He said, well, where's your pictures? I said, well, I don't have them with me right now. And was in my wife's car. I left my phone in there, locked up in the truck. And he goes, well, that's logical. And I said, no, they're out there in my wife's vehicle if you'd like me to go get them. He goes, sure. So I did. I went and got them. He went in there. We went in his office. I said, I've got a pretty nice phone, but it's not, one of the great pictures. So you have to kind of turn the lights down. I said, I'm going to turn this off so you can see it. Man, whenever I did, I went through about 15 pictures, and he just started shaking his head. And he goes, man, I can't believe that. And then he says, like the other guy did, I'm going to have to change the way that I look at things. I said, you better. I said, if you're the outdoor, a good outdoorsman at any time, I said, because you're liable to encounter one of these at any time, especially here around the swamps, rivers, creeks, reservoirs, and things here, swamps in Arkansas. So that's my thinking behind that. I'm not being detrimental to their character about the genius. It's just they would not listen. And then, boy, a lot of them now have come back with stories of their own, just like what y'all said. Come back with stories of their own, like, oh man, I wish I'd have known this a long time ago. And they, have the same, not the same level what we have naturally, but they still have the same level of wanting to see more. So.
Yeah, I thought there was an appropriate chapter to bring up in the book because Texas knows about it. I've heard about it and seen all these. There's so many people that are so. I mean, see, Will, you've evolved throughout your career with Bigfoot, and these people, not to mention names, that are stuck in the same pragmatic idea for 20, 30 years that the creature's this, that, and the other, but they lose focus on what else is going on around them.
That's right.
Because the whole subject matter has changed and evolved. It's not the ape running around the forest, in my opinion.
That's right. Everybody can have a little bit different story. You talked a while ago about the woo. My friend Daniel, y'all met Daniel. Oh, yeah. Daniel asked me today, I asked a lady, she asked me, she said, what is the woo in Bigfooting? I said, a good way to quickly explain that, I said, is the abnormal that often occurs in the paranormal. And I think that's a pretty good definition of that. That's actually from my little finite mind here, but it is. It's things that happen that don't really make any sense. But when you're out here studying the creatures, as they asked me a while ago, have I ever found any other creatures there in the woods? Oh, yeah, I have. I've got pictures of other creatures that scare me to death. I'm 64 years old. I'm not supposed to be afraid of anything. I've got pictures of other creatures there, like y'all mentioned, the devil dogs. We've got devil dogs. We have devil monkeys that look like daggum baboons. They're about 6 feet tall. We have what we call the gargoyle. We have the will-o'-the-wisp up there. We have one that looks like a yard gnome in there that we've got pictures of. And that's no, I mean, they're right there standing in front of my camera. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this? Like I said, we have dog man, but then we also have some that look a lot like a werewolf. And so that look more like a werewolf than a dog man does. So we do have those extra, and those creatures are there. When I first started this, I said, I'm a Christian guy. I didn't believe in that stuff. I didn't believe there was any way possible. And now, man, and my wife, she said, please don't talk about that. She said, because it's hard enough to defend you being a Bigfooter. Now that you're going to start talking about this, well, she's right, it is. But I told her, see, I've got to start telling people, because if they're there and they encounter one, I'm going to feel somewhat guilty if something happens to them. I said, they're real. I said, we've been lucky so far. They haven't, none of them has offered to hurt us, but they're standing right there in front of your camera. I showed one guy, man, he went bananas, and he goes, oh my gosh, that's a demon. I said, well, it may be. I don't know much about demons, but I know this much. I know the way the thing is looking right there. It's got almost like a stupid smile, and every one of its teeth are like canine teeth. He's got his lips curled back over his face like that. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. Brings back memories for me, for sure.
Hey, Will, I want to ask you something, because I've never really talked about this, but you're talking about, because it happened up there in Texarkana at my cousin's place, and they had a couple 100 acres up there, and there was a bunch of us cousins, little cousins, and we were all out roaming around. They had a big pine woods back in the back of their place and everything. We was out there running around one time, and we were playing hide and seek, right? And we started seeing, like, these they would like dart behind trees, but they were like a white shadow, and then there'd be a black shadow, and then there'd be a white shadow, and then there'd be a black shadow, and I've never really talked about it, because I don't know, I kind of thought, well, maybe it's just, we were kids and, our imaginations, whatever, right. But we were all seeing them. We called them ghosts. I mean, we didn't know what else to call them, but have you ever experienced anything like that out yonder?
I've actually seen shadow people. Now, I ain't seen many. I hadn't seen but 2, but I've actually seen shadow people walking. And one of them actually just walked with my nephew standing right there beside me, walked right into the middle of the ground right there. The other, my son was with me. We were fixing the old Bigfoot hunting, actually. And it had that aura out there where the clouds were blowing over the moon. We barely even got out of the yard, and there's this thing walking in. Like I said, it just disappears. So it does happen.
And I don't even know shadows are the right word for it. It's
Right.
more like fast moving mist.
Yep.
Because
And,
they really didn't have a shape to them. They were kind of almost what I remember is almost like a square with rounded corners.
yeah. Yep.
You know, and kind of like they were more solid towards the center, but they were kind of feathered or
Right.
whatever around the edges. And that's what I remember. But they would dart between trees.
Yep.
And you'd see
Yep.
a white one, you'd see a black one, you'd see a white one, you'd see a black one. And we were all seeing them.
Yep.
But like I said, I just wrote it off. But it just came to me, and I thought, well, I wonder if it's something just like in that area.
Well, I think it is because there's so many Indian tribes that have been around here, you know, and they were very spiritual people, and
Right.
And so I think that may have a lot to do with it because, man, I used to work at a haunted restaurant, and the woman killed her husband. He used to beat her. She killed him. She's trying to get away. She fell. They both burned up. And then there were people there a lot wiser than I. The first time they ever heard the noises up in the attic, and they're like, "Well, that's the ghost right there." And I said, "Oh man, you're just pulling my leg." Well, they wasn't pulling my leg. I'd be out there at night washing trash cans and back behind the restaurant back there, which was on a county road. And you would look up there and you would see a face in the window that was, like you said, was white. And then all of a sudden it was just dark. And and here's something I tell people, man, like I said, I'm a very spiritual man, but when here's a Bible verse when Jesus said with all the apostles, and they said they had supposed it was a spirit. And Jesus didn't say, well, man, there's no such thing as ghosts. There's no such thing as spirits. Jesus said a spirit doesn't have flesh and bones. There's a whole lot in what he didn't say. And,
Right.
so with that right there, I think that kind of leaves the door open. You look how many demons and spirits were let out. So we do see those, man. Stephen saw something white one night there. Stephen's 6'4" and about 330, man. He's a big man. He's not scared of nothing. Man, he called me right there from the woods. He goes, man, and I was just coming out of church. He goes, where are you at? And I told him, I said, I'm in the church. He goes, man, I just heard your alcohol. And I said, well, you didn't hear my alcohol. He goes, well, it was. But then the next night he was back. And like I said, those things were out there, and he was scared to death. He called me again. He said, hey, he said, I just want to keep you on the phone until I get back to my truck. And I've done that before too. And one of our favorite sayings with each other is, you know what you saw. You know, when you see something dark through there, I ain't blind. I ain't crazy. I have 27 vision. I could be an airplane or be a jet fighter pilot still. You know, my point of focus has changed because I've gotten a little bit older with this gray beard, but still with that right there. So it is.
You know, absolutely. And it's a text, it's a Will talking about the demons or whatever. I got to tell you guys something. That I have two more things left about your book I want to talk about, Will,
Okay.
but I do have to. It's kind of resonates with me talking about the demon thing. I do have to say that Sibylla Irwin has finished both my renditions of the Bigfoot I had. The humanoid looking, Down syndrome looking person. And she also finished what I always describe as the demon looking person.
Yep.
That will be unveiled to everybody in a month or so. So I'm going to have Sibylla on the show, and we're going to look at my images. And I will tell you this. They are about 98% accurate texts. Will everyone you've heard my story.
Yep.
These renditions give chills down my spine because they're extremely accurate. And we're going to do a show on that here in a couple months. And the demon thing, you know, yes, you can misidentify or misinterpret things in the woods, just like you mentioned about the baboon.
Right.
You know, how I don't call what I saw a demon today. At least I'm not 100% convinced. However, since I've been involved with this subject matter, when it did the transformation, like the baboon still looks like an ugly creature.
Right.
But when it gets pissed off, that face goes back, those teeth are exposed, and it totally metamorphoses too. So I'm thinking that's what my creature did, to be totally honest with you.
Well,
I don't think it was something from another planet. I don't think it was a demon. But again, when I tell the story from 5 years ago, I have to say it the same way because back in 2018, that's what I thought. So today, of course, I've changed. So I can't wait to show my rendition of that. And again, it's like all about what are we looking at? What are we seeing? And if you're a novice or rookie and you see something for the first time, you're seeing something that should not exist. So our mind is not processing on full throttle. It's not.
And that's true. And let me say one thing. You guys have seen, I've sent y'all all my pictures. All Bigfoot do not look alike because one of them doesn't have a cone head. Oh, well, that's not a Bigfoot. You know, that's a fake. No, you've got some, what me and Stephen call Hanks, that have the rounded heads. You've got some that got heads like Stewie off of Blasted Family Guy almost. They don't all look the same. They don't have the same hair color. They don't have the same tooth structure or mouth structure, but they're not all alike. They don't all have the same foot structure. The ones in Oklahoma have a different foot structure than what they have here, as a rule, in Arkansas, contrary to what some of the experts may say. And I know that for a fact because I've got a picture of one off of Little River. I sent it to L.A. Marzulli up there, and it looks so much like a daggum 8 foot. It's 18 inches long. I sent it to him to show at the Ohio conference last year. So they don't all look alike. So because if somebody tells you something that, oh, I mean, that's not what I know Bigfoot be, that doesn't mean they're lying to you. That means we just don't know everything there is to know about Bigfoot.
The two that I saw in the daylight couldn't be any more different.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the first one I saw was about 8 feet tall, slick black hair, round head. The second one I saw looked like a calico cat.
Yep.
You know, and fuzzy. I mean, and he wasn't near as tall either. He was probably maybe 7. But
me and Daniel got that picture last year down there at a place we call Ground Zero, 10.5 footer. Man, you talk about, it looks just like a giant baboon or a giant monkey face on there. And behind his head, you can kind of see where he's got another baby behind him holding on to his back right there. And you can see around his midsection, there's another hand right there. So when we saw that right there, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's what everybody says Bigfoot doesn't look like. Sometimes they do look like apes. They may not be apes. I don't know what they are for sure. Nobody knows for sure what DNA was mixed to put together, even if it was a mixed DNA. But on something other like that right here. So it's so when you see something like that, open your mind to what somebody tells you. Like I said, even about some of the woo, I've had some things happen to me there that I haven't mind spoke with them or anything else like that, what some people say they can do. And I don't have any reason to doubt them. Just because I haven't experienced it doesn't mean it's not true. Until I was 17 years old, I had not experienced Bigfoot. And then whenever I experienced that right there, and it seems like kind of it didn't open the floodgates, but it made it, either I learned a whole lot more from my study, or else they became more acclimated to me, and therefore the sightings became more frequent.
Yep. I could agree with that, Will. For everyone joining us late, you got to watch this show from the beginning because we are going through William's book, Searching for the Unfindable, My Quest for the Arkansas Bigfoot. The link for the book is in the chat. Thanks to the moderators. Thank you for doing that. And, I've got 2 more chapters to talk really quick before we have to say goodbye. And they work out perfectly because my last question is awesome. But we're going to go back to chapter 5, William.
Okay.
Lightning strikes twice.
Yep.
I love that.
Man, that was when you're sitting there and you've seen a Bigfoot, something that is not supposed to exist. You come upon it. You see it, you still don't believe it for a long. You believe it. You question yourself. Did I really see what I saw? And when the answer keeps coming back unquestionably yes, and you think, well, good grief, man, I'll never see another one of these things again. Well, then all of a sudden you do. My second one I saw was on a boat ramp at Mercer Bio with my 8-year-old nephew, and he was over there in the corner, and all of a sudden he stood up and man, my nephew's like, what is it? I said, get in the truck. What? I said, get in the truck. What? I said, get in the truck. So he gets in the truck. I don't even tie my boat down. My boat was my pride and joy, man. Boats are generally named after women. I didn't name this one Cindy because she was first, but it was my second. And I drove a mile with that thing untied so I could get away from there with him. So anyway, so I have that right there. There's my second sighting. And then whenever I again had become a UPS man, I was starting to see some of these signs that they do as far as the breaking the trees, manipulation of the trees, starting to see the footprints and stuff. And so all of a sudden I get my third sighting. I'm like, oh my gosh, and so there's that. You realize then that and people with their stories are so similar to yours that there's got to be more than just those creatures. So lightning strikes twice. I got my second sighting, got my third sighting. Man, like I said, Steve and I have an area, and it's in the foothills of the Ouachita Mountains. And I guarantee you, if it's not the most populous area in America. It's one of the top two besides Bluff Creek, because they are there. I've gotten pictures of 7 in a field at the same time. I've gotten pictures of 5 of them in a tree at the same time. And so when you see that, did that kind of boost your numbers up there a little bit? Did I plan on seeing them? Had no idea. My wife got a picture of one when she was down there where we had one called Brownie, a 9-footer. He was sitting there. He ran across the trail from us. Cindy walked down there. She had her camera. She took a picture of the woods. She come back. Oh, what is this? And I said, you want good news or better news? She goes, well, give me the good news. I said, well, that's Mama Bigfoot. And then she goes, well, what's the better news? I said, there's 2 babies there at her knees. Things like that happen like that. So lightning strikes twice. For her, it struck once. And finally, she's like, hey, they're there, you know. So, and she can defend me now from a point of view of that, well, don't think my husband's crazy, or don't think he's that, don't believe this just because he wants you to buy his book. She can tell you from a point of arguing from fact that what, just as well as she can tell you about what to do as far as for being a nurse and an oncology nurse. So it's really, like I said, that's where lightning strikes twice. Never thought it would have happened, and it did. And boy, now whenever I go out into the woods, thanks not just to this area as well, but like I said, also to the places I have down here around Mercer Bayou, down around Smith Park, I expect lightning to hit, to quote, lightning to hit again. I expect to see Bigfoot when I go there. And I've been very fortunate to see several down there, bunches. I've seen the Fouke Monster or his kinfolks about 7 times. And generally they have been multiple sightings, not just him by himself. Generally you'll have, some mamas there that they'll have the babies with them, or it'll be 1 or 2 that are walking together or something other like that right there.
Tex has been starring some questions, and we've done a good job of dissecting your book a little bit. I think people get a good feeling for the book. And the last one, before I'll have Tex handle the questions here. He's been starring a few of them. But chapter 15, and this is how I think, how Tex thinks, how you think, everybody thinks. Because after all, beyond BMR is how it all ties together. I always say that at the beginning of every show. In chapter 15, you must have taken this from me, Will. You says, you says chapter 15, William Lunsford, searching for the unfindable, my quest for the Arkansas Bigfoot. The link is in chat. Chapter 15, the common thread. Yep,
the common thread. There tends to be something here that tends to, for your Bigfoot to your sightings or encounters, whatever you call them, that kind of links all together. And that's one thing. If you have that counter and you don't try to figure out what it is, then your chances of having a repeat sighting, if that's what you want to have, are not very good. But it's also the chances you may have a sighting that you may not want to have. So if you don't kind of analyze that, but the common thread that I have down here is called the Sulphur River. Sulphur River is one of it's actually got 3 branches of it. Starts outside of Dallas. Did a little bit east of Dallas, and all 3 of those branches, they run down here to Red River, and then into the Mississippi through Arkansas, Louisiana. But that common thread is Sulphur River bottoms. My dad had a friend that was a safari guide over in Africa, and my dad was talking to him one day about the things that happened around Boggy Creek, about the Ford House and things like that. He said, Bob, he said, let me tell you what. He said, somebody told me that they saw anything from a tiger to Tarzan there in the Boggy Creek or the Sulphur River bottoms. I would believe it. James Fay from Finding Bigfoot fame, he goes, you could hide elephants in there. And you can, if you've been down there, you see how thick it is. You can walk in there at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You walk in 10 feet, it's like you're all of a sudden went to 8 o'clock at night. And so it's just how thick this area is. There's places there that I've had people tell me they've lived their own life. They said they're like I am. I truly believe there's places down there man's foot has never stepped. There's quicksand down there. There's just about everything that you could look for. And when you look at Sulphur River, you see these broken trees leaning over the side, like I said, like somebody's praying that whatever it is there doesn't get them and capture them. Boy, all of a sudden it gets your attention. But that's the common thread. And whenever I had a UPS route, 35 years, I generally average about 135 different stops a day. So I was dealing with about 250 different people a day. And I would be there going through the Sulphur River bottoms. And of course, I was never afraid to ask, and all of a sudden you get these same stories in the same one. Well, man, it wasn't too far. It's right over here, just off the Sulphur River, not too far ago. And so that would be the common thread. Or the second one, if it wasn't necessarily sulfur, once I started going to some of these other states, it was always some kind of river, some kind of creek. The man in the Legend of Boggy Creek, Vern Stearman, boy, he had a voice like Jim Reeves, just a crooner. And he goes, they always travel the creeks. And they do. And that was if when you hear that, you're going to say, oh, man, that's the common thread. It is a common thread. If you want to start having those sightings, start looking at those creeks, because everything has to drink. We can go for a while without food, but we got to have water. But then what's going to be there with the water is going to be the other animals, the prey animals and everything else. And so it's going to be, it's like us going to a super Walmart rather than a 7-Eleven,
Yeah, and we see the same thing down here, with the Trinity River Basin, the Brazos River, and everything. And of course, where I research up in Oklahoma, that's the Red River.
Right.
So it's a very common thread.
The Sabine, we got what's called the Sabine thing.
Yeah.
Down here, you also got the Caddo Lake, natural lake. Yep. And you got what's called the Caddo critter or the Caddo creature, So, and most of those you'll find have been named after the waterway where most of the sightings occur.
Hey, really quickly, Tex, were you and I at the Caddo Lake?
Yeah, we went over there and ate.
That was in Texas. Yeah, we ate there. Yeah, okay. I thought it
rang a bell. The Jefferson Conference. Yeah.
Jefferson, because that was the day that I got sick with the disease and had to leave early before I got a chance to talk to y'all. So I had to leave that day. But there at Jefferson, I've got a friend that owns land right around there. And 2 years ago, he had one follow him around for 4 hours all day long, walking around his deer stand. So he finally comes and said, man, can you come listen to this? I did. And man, some of the recordings he had were just awesome. It just made your knees knock. And so he said, I know they're real now. And you pointed out, the whoops that they make, the whoop, whoop. And then, when they come through, and then, some of them, they just like to cough at you basically, or they'll stomp at you. So they have different things that they do. But yeah, it's really great. This area that I live in has made it very, very easy for me to become a researcher and to quote ply my trade, so to speak. The only drawback is you got a lot of wild creatures. You got snakes, bears. I had a bear looking at me this year, about 6 feet tall, standing up there sniffing the air, just looking at me. He had a 45-70 looking at him. He didn't realize it.
Really quickly, I have somebody pounding at my back door. I got to go see who the hell this is, but I'll be right back in a second.
Go ahead.
Well, while he's doing that, let's run through some of these questions real quick.
Okay, please. Yes.
Scott Marion. Well, that one's for. Never mind. That one's for what's his name? Rob. Here's one. Henry Lee White. Do you think they migrate? One behind my folks' home, I believe they are going after a deer herd.
Yes, I do, Henry. I do believe they migrate. Especially Sulphur River, not so much because that's such a thick area right there. But up there in the foothills of the Ouachitas, where we research there, we can see just about what months they're going to disappear. You're not going to get the sightings. You're not going to get the footprints. Then all of a sudden, a little bit later on, as the months change and everything, all of a sudden you start getting the tracks and everything. I do believe they migrate. I still think they migrate using the rivers. If somebody gets lost, what are you going to do? You're going to get there on the rivers of the creeks. They're eventually going to end out somewhere. So I think, go ahead.
I don't think they migrate like thousands of miles. No. I think it's more, and I don't know if migrate's the right term, really. I think they
relocate.
Well, I think they seem to have like a territory, like a big cat.
Yep.
And they circle through that territory, so they don't use up the game in any certain place.
Well, the cats will have a 200-mile range as far as.
Yeah, exactly. Ain't no telling how big these critters have.
That's exactly right. And they have that troop. They have certain ones, I think, that have certain duties. I think certain of them actually, will serve as actually watchers when somebody comes around.
Yep.
I've had a game cam out there and that had the audio to it. As soon as you drive up, you hear the one knock out there, letting the others know, hey, there's somebody here. And how me and Steven tend to get a lot of our encounters. As soon as we pull up, the first thing we do is, I do a bar down, just and but I've got a plastic megaphone, and it really amplifies the voice. I mean, pretty soon, next thing you know, here they are, right there walking towards the edge of the wood. You hear them walking in and out of the woods there, and out of the edge.
I know them barred owls. They can get crazy. They can make weird sounds. I've talked to a lot of people. Well, I heard monkey sounds. Well, you got to be real careful with that because barred owls will make a monkey sound.
That's right, but so will a monkey, and so will
exactly.
Mine down here that he actually had one last year pant hooting at him. And he had an encounter before, and he was in the woods. He kind of blew it off. Well, sure enough, he's there about a week later, and all of a sudden, doing that noise right there. And he sent me the recording. I've got it here on my phone. I'm gonna try to send it to somebody to clean it up. But he sent it to me, and that's not the first time. So they do. But the barred owls, doing the laughing stuff, and it'll scare you to death if you don't know what it is.
Oh, yeah.
Bigfoot is a master imitator too, though, man. They can.
And I think a lot of people, when they talk about, and I've said this 1,000 times, I think all these when they talk about the mentally challenged owl they heard, or this was just kind of off or whatever.
Yep.
I think that's probably the juvies practicing.
Exactly.
Because I think these big adults, I don't think you can tell the difference unless you put them on a spectrograph, and then you'll see the frequency difference.
Exactly right. You will see the difference. And so and that's a true statement. That tends to run true to everywhere that I've researched through there.
Yep. Duke, World Bigfoot Radio. Question for Will. Is the new book ready yet?
Actually, my next book, I'm already working on book number 2. It will be a text version. It's going to be picking up. I have very little in there in my book right now about mine and Stephen's research. We've been researching now, although we've been friends for 30 years. We've been researching together about 6 years. And we actually have got a video of 3 Bigfoot walking out across a field there. Nice. You see the eyes change and everything. I mean, and you see them blinking and everything. And so, but this book here, I haven't got as much of my research with Stephen there, because as I said, I've had that book in hard copy for about 5 years for me and Stephen. Right. So my next book is already in progress. And then the next book I'm going to do after that. And like I said, I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing this just for the love of what I'm doing. And my next book is going to be a picture book. It's going to be a picture of a lot of pictures that I've got right here, showing people the different style heads they got. I've gotten, in the last 2 weeks there, I've probably gotten pictures of 4 or 5, just walking right up to the cameraman. Their eyeballs are just right there, and you can see just as big as Dallas. And so, Lori, thank you. If you will get in touch with me later, I will send you some of those pictures through to your phone if you want me to. She said, I'd love to see the things that you have. They're real. Like I said, it's not because I'm the world's greatest Bigfoot researcher. They let me see them, but I do work hard. I take a lot of pride in that. And sometimes when you put them on the computer, they'll kind of get distorted. But boy, when you see them in real life, from y'all seen them, when you've seen them from the phone, man, they're just as clear as a bell. So like I said, if you'll holler at me on that too, I'll sure be glad to share them with you. There's not a such thing as $1 million picture, folks. I used to think there was. I heard that story. Oh, well, man, you gonna make that $1 million. It ain't there. Oklahoma's offering $3 million to catch a Bigfoot if you catch him alive. Well, good luck with that. I want to be there. I'll buy tickets, and I'll buy y'all's tickets if y'all want to watch it.
And you know what, William, and Tex, this. And even if you did get that $1 million picture, you lucked out. The universe was on an equal plane, and you got that photo like we see on Instagram, and it's a Bigfoot. And as soon as you showed it, you will be called a fraud.
That's it. Like we talked about on chapter 1 there a while ago, fate, kids.
Yes.
Right. the luck of the draw. And then after that, all of a sudden it's public property. Had somebody the other day, I was going to put the picture that me and Daniel got of that 10.5 footer. And they said, well, man, can you send that to me? I said, well, not until I get this in my, and if I'm going to put it in my book. And they said, well, just go ahead and put it in your book. Then I'm going to come by and take a picture of it and have it. Well, that's not fair to Daniel. Daniel's worked hard for that, just like everything else, Yeah. Had one lady taking pictures over my shoulder at the Jefferson Bigfoot conference, and just had to become really belligerent because one guy had a picture there he sent to me. He made me promise I wouldn't share it with anybody. He said, you can show it, but don't share it. Well, she was sitting there taking pictures over my back. And I had to just say, look, you're really crossing a hard line right here. And I was trying to be nice about it, but I was also very agitated. All she would have done was ask me, and I could have told her that. So that's my next book. Is going to be text in it. I'm going to have some pictures in there. I've got 40 color pictures in this book right now. And that's because I didn't know how big the book was going to be. But then the next one will have some pictures, and then me and Steve we're going to do a picture book of Bigfoot, and it's got pictures of the structures. It's got a picture of a 7-foot 5-inch stepway. It's got some pictures of 22-inch tracks I found in the foothills and also down here at Sulphur River. I've got pictures of babies. There's just a lot of things I think that folks will find interesting, and maybe finally No, not everybody, like we talk about converting unbelievers. We're not going to convert all of them, but some of them
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah, you know,
Scott Marin wants to know. Or no, I'm sorry, Dad Gummit. Yeah, Dad Gummit. I'm going to go ahead and read this one. I keep running across it. But it's for you. It's for you, Rob.
okay.
Says there's a haunted restaurant in Detroit called the Whitney.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you need to get your butt over there and see what it's all about.
I've ate there. I witnessed no hauntings, but yeah, it's haunted for sure. There's a big history on it. Goes way back decades, years ago. That hotel's been there. Hotel slash restaurant's been there for well over 100 years. And it was there when we had the Detroit riots. I wasn't born back then, but yeah, a lot of death and a lot of tragedy. Hey, really quickly though, you guys, I got this is kind of funny story, and I have to interject this. I had to leave the show because my niece was pounding on the back door. Now listen though, it's funny because my niece, I'm like, she was texting. I don't answer my phone when I'm during a show. So I go up, I go, and her name's Lauren. I go, Lauren, what's going on? You all right? Yeah. And she lives 4 blocks from me. She goes, hey, Uncle Rob. I go, yeah. I happened to catch you on a show the other night. And on the show, for whatever the reason, you had made mention that you buy like 3 gallons of milk per week. I go, yeah. She goes, hey, I need a gallon. I go, 7-Eleven's up the road. Go Uncle Robbie. Just like a kid, so here, go grab one and let yourself out. So she's up there drinking milk and eating cake.
Hey, that doesn't sound like a bad idea. That's one of my
Yeah.
favorite breakfasts. That's breakfast of champions right there. And there's speaking of restaurants, there's a restaurant in Kentucky. I think it's Wilder, Kentucky, and it's called Bobby Mackey's. And Bobby Mackey's
Oh yeah.
has been profiled on That's Incredible and some of these other shows too as being a haunted restaurant. I told y'all I worked at a restaurant with the very first catfish restaurant in America called Hush Puppy out here off the Red River right there at the Index Bridge. And man, I didn't believe it. The people that told me, hey, I found out different. There's just because I didn't believe it didn't mean it wasn't true. And every now and then he wanted to just get my goat just to say, hey, anytime you want to, buddy.
Yeah.
So, and it did happen quite a few times. And so, but yeah, so you might want to look at that. Bobby Mackey's, I think it's Wilder, Kentucky. And they've got some good stories in there too. So
I've heard that.
Roger Blair is asking, have you ever heard of the Honey Island Swamp Monster in Louisiana?
yes, I have. I get to talk to Dana every now and then. Dana is the niece of the man who actually got that very first picture right there. And I'll ask her what's going on in Louisiana. She's very, very genuine. She's always open and up front, and she was a speaker down here at Fouke one time. And so she's very, very genuine. She's got the reel to reel, I think the original reel to reel that he got of the Honey Island Swamp Monster. And I drove down there, it was last year we were going down to, Florida. And so we cut through Louisiana and we stopped at a restaurant. It's a restaurant there, a restroom, get, Coke and something like that. And I happened to see a guy that had a shirt like what mine does here, Honey Island Swamp Monster. I said, man, are you a believer? He said, you better be. I'm like, hey, that's all I need to hear. So yes, I have the Honey Island Swamp Monster, and I believe it's real. If you've been down that area and you look right there around the Chaffalai Basin, I'm a bass fisherman. There was actually an encounter in Bassmaster magazine about one of the fishermen back there fishing in one of these little fingers back there, and Bigfoot walking in waist high water, stepping right across the creek where he was, not too far there from where Honey Island Swamp is. So yes, I believe in Honey Island Swamp. These creatures that are out there, they people say, oh well, that's something that they've made up. No, truth, fiction tends to mimic truth rather than truth mimicking fiction. And so that they're there. I'm going to talk to a friend here as we talked about the Fort Worth deal named Barton Nunley here.
Oh yeah.
Barton's, I think it's what the was it Spotsville or Sykesville Monster? I can't remember which one. They both start with an S. But I'm excited to do that, because his show was featured on Monsters and Mysteries. Barton's a great guy. Man, I'm gonna be on the edge of my seat with popcorn, waiting to talk to him like that.
Yeah,
I
met Barton.
great
I met
people,
Barton a few times. He's a good dude, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tell you what, you guys, there's a lot of great speakers and people that are going to be at that conference, and I am. Well, I'm not gonna say envy you guys, but yeah, it's gonna be a good time. A lot of great people to talk with.
And that's a good thing about most Bigfooters. They're free with their knowledge, with their
Oh, yeah.
experiences. I ain't gonna tell you. You might find out where my Bigfoot area is. No, not people like that out there. They're willing to tell you what all they've experienced. Most of the time, if they don't tell you exactly, it may be for your own good, but they'll give you a general area and they'll give you the rundown of what's actually happened. And you can see the truth in their eyes. Like I said, when you see the tears form, you see the shakes go, you realize they're telling you the truth. And like I said, really, really, really good people. So do attend those conferences. That's a great way to learn. Even if you don't want to be a researcher, that and the books that we're sitting here even talking about now. If you find just that one doggone hint in that book that helps you have your next or your first Bigfoot sighting, promise you, it's worth every bit of money you spent on a $15.99 book.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Derek Galloway. Now, I'm not sure what he's talking about here. Wants to know if your mindset has changed since becoming more popular. Oh, okay, I get it. Has your mindset changed since becoming more popular in the Bigfoot community? I don't know what he's talking about.
Well, I tell you what, and I appreciate him saying that. I don't know how popular I am. And maybe, the guy who gets rocks thrown at him is also popular in a strange way, but I appreciate you saying that. I really take this very, very seriously. And it has changed a lot because I've met so many people there, said some things that I truly, like we spoke about, that I might not have believed have happened. And all of a sudden I see them and speak with them. I've become lifelong friends with some of them. So the mindset has happened. And my mindset too towards sharing what we have here, what we've accomplished, the things that we've seen, the things that we've done, the pictures that we've got. I've never charged anybody for pictures or anything else like that. And so it has changed. It's made me more open. But then again, like I said, I've become a better person, by many of these people that I've met, and I appreciate you saying that because the creatures are really popular. I'm just sitting there. He walks by and I get to tell you what happened. And that's kind of how a sighting works out. But I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Yeah, and William's book, once again, Searching for the Unfindable, My Quest for the Arkansas Bigfoot. I've read it. I love it. I tell you what, William, I don't know. Hopefully we did you justice in exploring your book a little bit for people to go out. I know already several people have purchased it. And
thank you.
And I did want to get this out because, again, you're a humble man. You don't do a lot of promotion. So I figure, I got to have Will on to talk about his book. And you were gracious enough to send me a free copy. I shouldn't have said that online, right? But no,
well,
but you only had a few copies left over, and I read it, and I really love the book, and I just wanted to have you on and talk about it because it's worth to have in anybody's library if you're a researcher, enthusiast, or interested in the subject. And it's a very personal, in-depth book. There's a lot of personal talks. You bring up Cindy's in the book for a couple of chapters, and it's a very it's a great read for anybody, really, to be honest.
Thank you. I've actually got a picture in there of a Bigfoot laying in front of my game cam, and we have been after him for a while. He's laying down there in front, kind of like what's called a skookum cast. When me and Stephen got there, I saw that there was a body shape in where the grass was laying down. This Bigfoot is actually laying there. You can see the big cone head. You can see the black eye band right there. You can see the silver brow ridge. Kind of looks like Herman Munster. He's laying there. He's got his hand around a snack size Snickers bar. You can see his legs as he's got him out there and bent the whole another way. But man, you just soon try to pull his teeth, try to get that Snickers bar out of his hand because they have got a sweet tooth, kind of like this big boy that's sitting in front of y'all's computer screen right now. So, but it includes that picture in there. Like I said, it's got a picture of that a friend of mine. One of the first pictures I've got in there is a friend of mine. He lives right there on the bayou. It took him 4 years. He saw him the first time. He kept a camera with him all the time, scared to death. Finally, he saw him again, was afraid to take the picture, afraid the thing might interpret his movements as aggression. He said, shoot, man, you only live once. So he sent that, and that's a very, very good picture. You see, again, the cone head in that. And I've got some other pictures in there as well. So, but I do think you'll enjoy it. Like I said, I tried to put pictures with And I actually put a picture in there of the one that we got there. I told you off of the film that Stephen and I got that night of the video down there, and you can see it. It's black right there, but you see the cone head with that joke. You see the black eyes, and really, stuff that's really, they're actual real pictures. And if people don't want to believe it, then that, like I said, that's the one thing we can't control. But I shared them because I felt like that might make some people say, hey, I'm a little bit more persuaded that these things are real than what I was before I started reading. And if we can do that, then then I'm happy, and I've done my job as somebody who wants to, to relate these stories, not because I'm wanting to make $1 million, because I ain't. Like I said, I think I've had it out for 4 months now. Like I said, I'm getting close to being on the broke even side there.
Well, hey, that's when you hit break even, that's a start. And William, I want to thank you for coming on. This is a great show, and the best shows. Well, they're all great shows, but when you come on, I love you. You're genuine. You're forthright, and the book is fantastic. The links have been spread throughout all night. Yeah, I know some people have bought it already. And again, the link will be in my YouTube channel to check it out, the description page. So outside of the book, is there any place else where we can find you?
Like I said, if you can't find the book there, I said I've got probably about 20 copies left here that I kept at my house there, just for people that come by. So, that I know here in town. Oh man, I meant to buy one of your books. I've got some here, but I will actually ship them to you. They're like I said, they're $30, and plus it'll be like $6.27, I think, in shipping, something like that. As soon as I get your request, get that money in there, then I'll ship it, turn around that day. So if you can't get it there, again, it's Lulu Books. It has got it on there, and that's the paperback, and it's reasonably priced in there as well. Then I've got it on Amazon Kindle there as well, and so you can find the book there. And then if you can't find it, just send me a message through Facebook Messenger, and then I'll see what I can do to be sure if I can't run one up. But I do hope everybody that bought it, hope they enjoyed it, and when they read it, I hope you've enjoyed the show here, and thank you again for everybody for listening, because it means the world to me, man. Just and again, I ain't got no big head. Being humble is better than anything, and truly it is. I want people to know that, being humble, because things can change at any minute, and it did for me, and something that happened to me, I was able to share and bring a little bit of joy to some other people's lives, and so I hope it continues to do so. But I appreciate you for what you've done.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Quick question, Will. Now you're just going to be at the conference. Are you going to have a vendor's table or anything at the conference?
No.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, if you've got any books laying around the house, why don't you bring them and we'll put them on our table?
Okay, I'll do that. I will do that. I appreciate that. I didn't know know how long I was going to get to stay, but I do. I've got a couple of they're bound in 4. I'll sign them. The autograph's free, man. My autograph is, the only time it's worth anything is when it's on a check. It's not worth much then, but I'll be glad to sign them for anybody like that. And then if they can get them, then y'all can just square up with me later on. But I'll bring some there, and I'll be there at the Fort Worth conference. And don't hesitate. Like I said, if you'd like to just shoot the breeze, as you know, man, I can talk your ear off. So come prepared to talk about Bigfoot, Dogman, bass fishing, whatever you want to talk about. But I'll be glad to visit with everybody there.
Yeah, I noticed that one hanging on the wall back there.
Yeah,
and that's not the biggest one. That one right there is about 9 1/4. I've actually caught a 13-pounder, and I've got it. I caught it and then turned it loose, because after that I just quit mounting them. And
I've got a 10 on my wall, and I'm happy.
That's me too. I've got a deer that never had a deer mounted, and I finally bit the bullet this year. Got him coming in, but it was a real nice 8-point, about 22 inches wide, something like that. And so I'm going to do that, and that's going to be the last one of them I do. I don't have to grease my ego by doing things like that. That was like you said, guys, when he asked me a while ago, has it changed the way you do things? Yes, it does. You realize that kind of thing is not near that important. What's important is the people that you get to visit with, and truly, I mean that, guys. I hope y'all can tell that I do, because I mean it.
No, man, I've said it enough. I've said it all throughout the show. You're awesome and genuine guy, and I can't wait to meet you one day. It's not going to be this year. And it's funny, in closing, Duke Sullivan says, a friend of yours, Will, and mine in Texas, Duke says, well, this show has been nothing, and he's kidding, of course, I think. This show's been nothing but a paid advertisement. So this is for you, Duke. You can find my book, Bigfoot Mr. Rock Presents. True Cryptid Encounters. Book 1 you can find on Amazon. That link has also been sent out by Lori in the chat. For those of you who have bought it, I do appreciate you guys.
You bet.
I also appreciate Anella and Megan for your awesome super chats.
You really
Please
did.
subscribe to Texas Front Porch, Bigfoot, Mystery and Rob, the Blondes Blues Paranormal Podcast on YouTube. And yeah, you know what? Subscribe to Duke Sullivan. You probably all have already. World Bigfoot Radio.
There needs to be one more book written. It's called The Encyclopedia of Cryptids by Duke Sullivan, because he knows more than anybody in America about the cryptids.
Yeah, he knows probably more than he probably forgot more about Bigfoot than I know.
And Lori, I will send you an autographed copy. Just do that, and then and holler at me, and that will be great.
And so let's see. Today is Tuesday, so Wednesday. Don't forget to tune in. You've got Jason McLean. You got Daniel Diva. Thursday, I've got Varla Ventura on. We're talking about mermaids and other strange creatures of the ocean. Yeah, that's right. Every Tex and all those guys are going to be on their way to the Dogman conference. So it's going to be me and Varla hanging out. And then Friday, you got what do we got Friday? Tex, who's on? Do we know anybody Friday?
They're doing it's me and Jason.
Oh, sweet. Okay, awesome.
Yeah, it's gonna be me and Jason on the Blondes, Blues, and the good grief.
Yeah, the
Blondes, Blues, and the Blues.
Awesome.
I named that damn show and I can't say it.
Yeah, I know that we all know that, Tex. Here it is, and you've got your of course Saturday. You've got another show with True Crime and Infamous Minds, and so yeah, everybody, great week to be subscribers to the channels. And if you are going down to the conference, pick up Will's book. Tex will have a few for you guys to buy. So that'll be awesome too, and they'll be signed. That's what it looks like anyway. We'll see. So thank you, Will. Thank you, Tex. Thank you again,
everybody.
Maggie. Thanks to Maggie and Ella for everybody that has bought Will's book tonight.
Well, thanks, Tex and Rob, and again to our first responders, our police, and our veterans who gave us this good life that we have here right now.
Yeah, outstanding. Again, thank you. And for Tex, for William, it's BMR. And until next time, we'll see you on the flip side.
Sounds good. Thank y'all.